You know who was the guest on The View this morning?
Who?
Bob Iger.
What?
The CEO of Disney and boss of ABC. He has a new book. And would you guess what the questions were? They were like,
How good are you at running ABC?
yes, they said like, it's amazing that you came from the mailroom. So you're a self-made man. What kind of dedication did it take for you to rise to the top? And then they're like, it seems like but still very humble and very dedicated. It was like Lisa Simpson reading the thing, like your campaign has the momentum of a runaway freight train. How are you so popular?
How is The View going? How is The View viewership?
You know what? It's been less traumatic than I thought for one simple reason. It's divided into 3 segments. 3 5-minute talk segments and then 3 5-minute commercial breaks. There's barely any show. It's mostly commercials.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I've seen The View, and your observation that they preview segments that never
air.
That's completely true. Like this is a TV show that they would watch in the Harrison Bergeron world.
Yeah,
where you forget everything after 9 seconds.
It's every segment is a broken play in football. It's just they are scrambling. It's like, oh no, we were going to talk about Democratic candidates, but I guess somebody found like a Dear Abby clipping about giving your husband the silent treatment, and so we're going to talk about that instead.
I know. So when you started watching, they had just come back from a break, and you observed at the beginning that Megan, she's not all fiery and mad right now.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh well, she's well rested. Give it a little time. Now it's about 3 weeks in, and she's
peppery. But the funny thing is what I've realized is that she doesn't get mad really because the other hosts are, being libs and rejecting her and her, like her big first week, she was like, oh, being virtue signaled too fast her first week. But the real thing she gets mad at is that she herself is astoundingly inarticulate.
Yeah.
And cannot actually make an argument or like a point. And so everyone else just kind of has to spend the time trying to like suss out what she means.
And she gets frustrated.
And she gets mad at herself for not being able to speak English.
Right. She can't communicate. I could empathize with that because that's like being in a K-hole.
Yeah, no, she's like Nell, basically.
Ma Chicka Bay.
She's Ma Chicka Bay. like the thing where she stormed off because of Navarro. What she was yelling about was she was trying to relitigate the thing from the argument she had where she got owned by Pam Anderson, and she was trying to make some point about whistleblowers, but she wasn't like there was never an object and a subject in the sentences she was saying, so nobody knew what she was actually trying to get at. And like Abby Huntsman at one point tried to like break in and like tried to translate for her, and then she just like yelled over everybody for her to make a point, and her point was, "Well, I was clumsy in how I said it. Well, I'm sorry." Which is like, bitch, we're trying to figure out what you're talking about on live television. It's on you to make sense.
Which is funny to me
because you're a
because
professional communicator.
Half of the other hosts are already making whatever stupid point she wanted to make, and I think that kind of trips her up when Abby Huntsman's already like, I think Julian Assange has put our intelligence agents in danger. Yeah. And it's like, Megan, you were going to say something like that, so you just nod.
But she says it incoherently.
Is Felix? We got Felix back?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
I was...
you were shitting out your doo-doo ass.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
I was shitting out my doo-doo ass and cleaning out my sinuses. Oh, God.
That's what he calls it. That's what he calls it.
Do you see the way that they treat me here?
Okay. Yeah, people want to know about people want to know about your
why I'm recording remotely. You see the way they treat me.
Okay.
Oh, God. They make me watch The View. I don't even like it. Oh, God. Oh, God. They make me watch the two daughters be friends. Oh, God. Oh, God. They're having on Alton Brown to talk about healthy lunch choices.
All right, so here we are, guys. It's another Chapo. What's been going on in the world? Where do you want to start today? I feel like the way I've mapped it out for today is like 2 examples of just sort of the short and long-term cycle of eternal recurrence that we're living in. You want to go with the short or long one first?
Well, I certainly don't want to talk about how the fact that the U.S. military barbecued about 70 Afghan civilians in the last week. That's a bummer. So let's go with the short term.
Okay, short term. There's another totally not really inscrutable, but like incredibly boring Trump scandal that everyone has to pretend to care about now involving
is too far, sir.
Involving Ukraine and our boy Hunter Biden.
It's amazing how that stupid and fake country has the nexus for everything that has happened in this country in the last 2.5 to 3 years.
As best I can understand it, it's like basically while the Mueller investigation was going on, or like the day he even like testified in front of Congress, Donald Trump was just getting on the phone to the president of Ukraine being like, we'll give you money if you investigate bad Joe Biden's awful son, Hunter. And I mean, I don't know what came in that.
All right. No, see, there's two versions. Oh, okay. God, I already feel like I'm getting leukemia injected directly into my spinal cord just thinking about trying to explain this, because this is some more bullshit that liberals are going to fixate on and say this is what we all have to talk about, and it's further inscrutable crap that no one else will care about.
And if you say I don't care or this is boring, you're actively helping Trump.
So the deal is that when Biden was, and this is actually referenced in the New York Times article about Hunter we read, is that Hunter was given a board job on a Ukrainian energy company.
That sounds all above board.
$50,000 a month to be on the board of this company. Because what we've read about Hunter Biden,
Hunter S. Biden,
he knows. What does he know? He knows doing crack. He knows
buying crack.
Crying shirtlessly. He knows telling people to fuck you because you don't understand him. And you know what? I'll just go be an addict if that's what you think I am. And also Ukrainian energy. Those are his bailiwicks.
Yeah.
And so they hired him for this job, and
while Biden was the vice president.
Yes. And at some point, the Ukrainian prosecutor was pressured by Biden on behalf of the Obama administration to be fired. They said, we're not going to give you aid unless you fire this prosecutor. They claim because he was not doing enough to halt corruption in the Ukraine. The Trump and those guys are claiming it was because he was getting too close to Biden and his corruption. And so what Trump was alleged by this whistleblower, who he will not allow his report to be released, which is actually pretty fucked up and illegal, but whatever. According to the whistleblower, he was on the phone with the new Ukrainian president, the one who became president of Ukraine after playing the president of Ukraine on a TV show. That's a true thing. And said, look, we got this military aid for you, like $250 million or something, and we will hold it. We will not give it to you until you investigate this. The idea that Biden pressured them to fire this prosecutor.
Right.
And that's apparently like the big election meddling thing, is he was trying to use his position as president to get the Ukrainians to stitch up Joe Biden on a false charge of trying to help his son.
Okay.
So that's the stupid, boring crap that we have to care about now.
Now, here's what I mean about this is an example of a shorter term reoccurrence, because on the one level, this is exactly I 100% believe that everything Trump did in Ukraine is totally corrupt.
Oh, God,
and it's just a straight up bribe to a foreign country attack his.
It's pretty bad. It's some tin pot autocrat shit.
Well, yeah, but you know what it was. I believe it happened because it was a deal.
Yeah,
it's a deal. It's very bad. Hunter Biden is very bad father doing very bad things in Ukraine. You hadn't even imagined how bad they are. I've got this military aid for Ukraine. Well, why would I give it to you if you're not going to give me something in return? It's just a deal.
I just basically think any American or doing anything in Russia or Ukraine is bound to be shady on some point. But it's like the Hillary Clinton stuff all over again. It's like, okay, I'm sure what Trump was doing in Russia, it was not above board. But the thing is, what they exposed about Hillary Clinton also kind of not above board. And here's the thing with the Hunter Biden stuff. It is super shady that he got that fucking job.
And what they're asking you to do is they're asking you to say, go into the election with Biden, ready to spend your time insisting to everybody who isn't an obsessive psycho paying attention to politics that it's not actually bad that his son got this incredibly lucrative job on the board of this company in Ukraine, a notoriously corrupt country, because the real scandal is what Trump did about it. Oh, wow. That worked so well the last
But
time.
these are just like competing gradations of the same general kind of corruption.
Yes.
And rot of our political system.
Because we certainly don't know enough from experience that when people are confronted with this, they just say, oh, everybody's crooked. And then they just say that they cancel each other out, which is exactly what happened with Clinton and Trump.
I've got some thoughts on this. Like the main storyline is quite boring. It's like slightly more interesting than the usual thing, but like shitty sons and daughters of whoever have been given lucrative contracts forever. Joe Manchin's big daughter famously has some bullshit pharmaceutical job. Meghan McCain's on The View. There is a universal jobs program for people like this. But the angle that I find interesting is like just the breathlessness. Brian Schatz, who's like the poster senator, sort of the senatorial equivalent of Ted Lieu, because he has a more upper brow, like, I guess we're in hell world now, sort of like generalized media dipshit pussy style of posting. So he's endeared himself to a lot of like crooked media type accolades. He had some big breathless post about how this is serious, this is 0 hour for democracy, and what the fuck are you doing? And it made me almost violate terms of service for multiple reasons. One of them being like, you're a fucking senator. What am I supposed to do? Mm-hmm. Should I reply to Trump? Like, what am I supposed to? It's your job, you fucking cunt. But anyway, it also like, it made me have a flashback of every time this has happened, of every time a senator or someone infinitely higher up on the totem pole than me has said this is the biggest crisis ever, and then their next tweet is like, controversial opinion, Reese's peanut butter cups are trash. And what is the effect? What is the effect of constantly telling me that democracy is ending, that this is the most important election ever, just like the last one was, just like the one before that one, that we need to hold this guy accountable now? Not me, the senator, me, the congressman, me, whatever. My brain don't say it. You, the reader, you, the girl reading this. What is the effect of that? And then just life goes on. Because you have the same dreary depression you have from your alienated, shitty life going on as usual. This thing that Trump did that's supposedly unprecedented, which, by the way, you know what some of my earliest political memories are? They're of random Arab guys who the fucking army detained and tortured, who had nothing to do with Al-Qaeda, suing the government because they were citizens who were tortured for years on end and then told, oh, no, sorry, you can't even sue, it's national security. Because, like, if what Trump is doing these last 4 or 5 times that are supposedly democracy ending, if those are the moves of a tin pot dictator, which they are, what was that last thing? What was that last thing? Because I swear to God, you're fucking posting pictures of the guy who did that, giving Werther's Originals to Michelle Obama. So it all seems very fucking meaningless when you say that. But the effect it has on like the regular liberal who does buy into all that is just a continued psychosis. Their reality frays on the edges, but their lives are just as dull and shitty as always. It creates this sort of vocal minority in this country of people who feel like their reality is falling apart, but their lives are pretty much the same, which further alienates them from normal people, even though that's a very dispersed and undefinable term, who also feel insane and alienated because that's just their condition. Meanwhile, there will be 4 or 5 things like this that Trump does that are supposedly beyond the pale, more beyond the pale than the last thing he did beyond the pale, even though I said the exact same shit last time. And then within 2 weeks, it's moved on. You're correct. You're trying to give him epic Pinocchios because he said he fucked the girl in the song Centerfold. Nothing ever gets better. It only gets worse, but it stays the same somehow.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
you'll just go more insane forever. Awesome. We love it.
I mean, yeah, again, I don't know what more to say about the Ukraine story other than, like I said, you're going to be cajoled into, you know, you're going to be beaten over the head into like, yeah, that this is the most important thing ever until it's not. But like all the people who are telling you it's the worst, most horrible, you know, breach of our democratic norms and government of all time are still not going to impeach him. They're going to say stuff like,
They're not.
we're very strongly considering, our options regarding his, truthfulness, blah, blah, blah. But they're not going to impeach him. They're going to try to elect Joe Biden or Elizabeth Warren president. And that's going to be it.
But the function of this is like, it's the thing that we used to make fun of like Bush supporters for in the mid 2000s. Oh, you like being afraid all the time. That's everybody now. That just became, if I had to pick like a single, like the most underrated effect of Bush politics, it was that everyone adopted it, that you should just make your voters in constant fucking terror all the time. There's so much to be afraid of just in your life, in the world, even as an American. But the things that make you precarious and you should be afraid of aren't the things that they want you to be afraid of. But I mean, like, we vetoed talking about it just because it's so boring. And I personally feel like she gets a lot of play out of just like left liberals sort of talking about her. But that Barry Weiss book is just a perfect example of how widespread this is, that just everyone is a potential enemy. If you're an American Jew, just anyone is a Nazi. Be they like Women's March people are out to kill you. Everyone is out to destroy your perfect democracy. The things that don't actually affect your life are existential threats to you. You should be in pure fucking terror all the time, and we're the only ones who can fix this. We're all just different shades of the most diehard Bush supporters in 2004 now, and it's very depressing.
Well, maybe this will cheer you up. Here's my second example of the eternal reoccurrence that we're all living in. This one's a little bit more interesting to me. I think a little bit more meatier for our discussion. The Working Families Party endorsement of Elizabeth Warren and the subsequent fallout over it. So basically, what happened is the Working Families Party continued their long tradition of endorsing Joe Crowley over Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and endorsing Andrew Cuomo over Cynthia Nixon and endorsed Elizabeth Warren over Bernie Sanders.
No, they endorsed Cynthia Nixon.
They did endorse Cynthia.
You're thinking of Zephyr Teachout.
Zephyr Teachout, that's what I'm thinking of. Okay, so they endorsed Warren over Sanders, right? And immediately there became a controversy about, how was this vote done? And they immediately clammed up and said that we're not going to release any of the, we're not going to be transparent at all about how this vote was conducted. And basically what it comes down to is that they instituted for the first time a kind of super delegate system when it comes to their party's endorsement of a candidate, where it basically weighted the votes of about 56 of the party leadership of the Working Families Party equally with their rank and file members. And that is basically how you ended up with a Warren endorsement over Sanders. And, obviously, like, people are, rightly a little bit annoyed at the, rather cravenness of this. But then, like, after that, there's another fallout where there's like an open letter done by a group of progressive activists in support of the Working Families Party leadership that basically stated that it stated that they were being subjected to, quote, white terror on the left and the right as it comes to angry Sanders supporters in their mentions. None of these emails or tweets were ever, again, made public so people could see, the type of harassment or, supposed death threats that are going on here. But again, what I mean about eternal recurrence is that every single thing that happened in 2016 as regards Bernie Sanders and his supporters and the way we argue about politics in a public sphere is happening again right now. 100%. And like, we've seen it all before and we're living it now again. Sanders missed the candidates forum on LGBTQ issues this week because he had a prior engagement to speak at a historically black university. And the executive editor of Out magazine said that Sanders and Trump supporters are basically the same in that they hate, gay people and black women in particular. Again, it's just like, and then in that article, if you look at they actually do provide tweets about, what is the supposed harassment that's the same as it is on the left and the right or among Sanders supporters and Trump supporters. It's basically people disagreeing with her take that, Sanders is anti-LGBTQ, or simply providing, evidence of the fact that he has been, at a time when, Elizabeth Warren was a Republican. Sanders was in favor of, gay rights and gay marriage. Obama was against gay marriage until 2009. He hasn't had to evolve.
Until 2012.
2012. I mean,
I remember because Biden outran the coverage on that, and he kind of made them have to be in favor of it because he kind of just went, fuck it, we're in favor of gay marriage, and then they had to play catch up. He absolutely campaigned on the whole civil unions but not gay marriage thing.
But the it was actually Catherine who broke that story for Splinter about this leaked open letter that was done again in support of the leadership of the Working Families Party and their endorsement of Warren. But I mean, I guess like what we're seeing right now is like, look, I know like Warren is not exactly the same candidate as Hillary Clinton. Like their politics are different. They are running a different campaign technically. However, she's being cast in exactly the same role. And I'm sorry, the people who by and large support her in the media or who are now her biggest boosters are the same people, the exact same people who did this to Bernie Sanders in 2016 for Hillary Clinton. I just think we're seeing the exact same narrative play out in front of our eyes all over again.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, I don't know.
Why mess with a fucking winner? You know, in their minds, that helped Hillary win. Why wouldn't you do it again?
And like, you're going to have to, it's sort of like, well, what do you do about it? Like you can argue your point, you can make a strong
harassment.
case or like
no, that's harassment.
Like, well, yeah, exactly. Like you have to realize that if you argue a point, if you disagree with anyone, you're going to be accused of doing harassment or worse, or literal white terror against in minority populations. So I mean, what do you do? Do you just only talk about Bernie Sanders, or do you like not engage at all with the actual political debate and contest that's going on? I don't know, but like the one thing I do know is that you can't pretend like this isn't happening or that there's not a real.
Now, here's what you do. So all of the people who try to make hay about Bernie Sanders supporters being misogynistic and doing harassment and all that crap, if you use Twitter's search function and go back on their timeline to like 2013, every single one of them has tweets from 2013 that are like, I'm sick of all these fucking Asians at Taco John's. Just search their name and Asian and use a search parameter before 2013, before 2014. So just find those tweets and report them as racism and hopefully get them banned.
This is all, I'm sure, for most people, very horrifying. You're getting flashbacks. You're getting sweats. You got the giant from Twin Peaks saying it's happening again. I understand that, and it is horrifying. And it's very disheartening. And you see this and you're like, what? Why am I trapped in this hell that can never change? Why am I in a Nietzschean eternal recurrence? But there's hope. And this is really what I've been trying to tell myself over the past few months, to sort of attain a Zen detachment from all of this. And this is the simple fact that this time around, the entire Bernie campaign and the Bernie theory of change, not just to win the primary, but to win the general, and then to actually do anything when you're in power, is predicated on the notion of activating people who don't usually vote, who are not politically engaged. By definition, people who don't go on Twitter and don't watch MSNBC for 4 hours a day until their brain has the consistency of KY jelly. And that we can't know that for sure. Like, that's a thing that might not work. It's a thing that you're not even going to see reflected in polls, because polls are weighted against people who don't vote that much by definition. And you could argue very reasonably that they shouldn't do that, because you're trying to predict something. You want to go by who's most likely to show up. But the fact is that the people who vote in presidential primaries in the Democratic on the Democratic side are a fraction of the population of people who actually vote in general in this country. They are attached to the Democratic Party in some way. Might it be some sort of like they're either part of the apparatus, they're adjacent to the apparatus, they have some sort of emotional or personal attachment to one of a apparatchik or a politician, or they just watch TV. They watch MSNBC with a little Democrat pennant and they root for the Democrats. Any of that means they're invested in the Democratic Party. And the Democratic Party is deeply invested, as in the media, in not having Bernie win. They don't want him to win because he's the only one who's actually a threat to anything. And so they're going to do this shit. They're going to do shit like this on Twitter. They're absolutely going to do shit like this on TV. I mean, there was one bad poll out of Iowa, and MSNBC was having a roundtable about whether Bernie should drop out. And that's going to happen. But the thing is that if the people who are going to vote and determine this thing are that set number of people who vote in Democratic primaries, he's not going to win, because between Warren's appeal to like technocracy that urban liberals love and Biden's appeal to electability, which people who are like lower down on the economic totem pole and more traumatized by the idea of Republican governance because it affects them more directly are also persuaded by, one of them is going to win. He's not going to win unless his message is able to engage people who are outside of this process. And those people aren't paying attention to any of this stuff. It's also the only way he's going to be able to make a governing majority or press forward to change anything when he's in office and overcome the obstacles put there by things like the Constitution. So keep that in mind. I mean, do what you're going to do, post what you're going to post, but just know it's out of the hands of anyone who you can think of directly who is a politically engaged citizen.
Two things on that. Like I overwhelmingly agree with you about that. Like there is a sort of a bliss in surrender that it's all just kind of madness. However, I do think, like, as far as the media goes, for people who are a little bit older and still look to things outside of like the internet for their sort of space of consensual reality, I think the things the media do and how they cover Bernie Sanders, which is largely either negatively or just not covering him or just pretending like he's not the number two.
That's the number one strategy,
well, yeah,
right?
exactly.
More than attacking him, just pretending he's not there.
Just pretending he's not there and making it seem like it's a two-person race between Biden and Warren, even though Sanders is, by most accounts, strongly in the number two position. Just pretending that he's not there. I think for a lot of people who do really like Bernie, I think it and then look, like I said, look to the media for their space of kind of consensual reality. I think it's not just demoralizing, but I just think it gives them the impression that he has no chance. So like, why bother?
Yeah.
But like to your second point, I think this is more important. It's not out of your hands. It's not out of your hands. But like, just understand that all of this, it's going to be even harder and dirtier than it was in 2016. But if you're on the internet, if it's on Twitter, or if it's a media conversation, or it's like the shit we talk about in the show, like, yeah, it is out of your hands. However, donating money to Sanders is not out of your hands.
Yes.
Volunteering your time, no matter what state you live in.
Talking to people who aren't politically engaged, because that's how it's going to happen. It's going to go around these structures. That's how you're going to engage the people who are not already kind of brainwashed, frankly, by the political parameters created by the parties and by the media.
What I mean is like, yeah, like no matter what state you live in, or if you live in a state that's close by to a very important state, be it, Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, etc., you can volunteer, you can find a group, you can find people who are volunteering and working with the campaign, and then it's not out of your hands. And like that, I think, is the only real antidote to being driven insane by this drivel and by like the onslaught on your sense of your common sense and rationality that you see take place every day, is to give up on that and like take an active measure to actually take it in your hands and do something that does matter.
Yes.
And so that way you don't feel the sense of complete hopelessness and alienation that the rest of this is intended to inculcate in you. But just understand that like it's not going to be easy. It's going to be even harder than it was in 2016. But at the same time, I think for a lot of reasons, it's harder, but I think he still has maybe even a better chance than he did in 2016 for a number of reasons.
Yes.
I mean, going on to like Warren in general, and like I said, like regardless of, there are real political differences between her and Hillary Clinton, but like it really does seem like she's hoovering up all the people that were embarrassed to vote for Hillary Clinton in 2016 and just don't want to vote for Bernie because that's like a bridge, that's a hurdle that they can't clear.
Yeah.
Just sort of like embarrassed upper middle class white liberal professionals.
Why don't they want to vote for Bernie Sanders?
Because they're not socialists. I mean, at the end of the day,
they disagree with his politics.
Yeah.
They still blame him for Donald Trump being president. They think he's just an old white man, or like why do you think?
But they had I mean, it's your category. You bringing this up.
Well,
it's your category of people who did not support Hillary last time around.
No, they voted for Hillary last time around, but they're like embarrassed about it in retrospect, and they're looking to cover their ass in a way, or they realize their error, but like they're not willing to go all the way.
But what's their what are they uneasy? What were they uneasy about Hillary? Was it that she lost only in hindsight?
Yeah, exactly.
But otherwise, they were on board with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. That's what I mean. And it's like, here's the thing. like in the left of center progressive part of the media, the line that you hear over and over again is that there's no difference politically between Sanders and Warren, and like that they want the same things, their policies are the same, like they're both equally good. So why not just support Warren? Is the unstated part of that equation there. But my response to that is, if Sanders and Warren represent the same politics, the same policies, and the same political vision for this country, what in your opinion would account for the vast difference in the way they're covered by the media? Because you have to ask, okay, I was thinking about this last week. Has Elizabeth Warren, outside of the Breakfast Club, had a bad media hit at all? I mean, you can talk about the 23andMe, like the DNA test stuff, but that was an entirely an unforced error on her part.
Yeah.
And it was covered by the media because they had to. But like overwhelmingly, outside of the Breakfast Club and Charlemagne the God, who kind of embarrassed her, Elizabeth Warren has not had a single negative media hit. And if you look at the way she's covered in the New York Times, it's like Elizabeth Warren, lessons in leadership. It's never like,
outside of conservative media, which tends to write her in the same column as Bernie, as the candidates are all going too far left. The concern trolling type pieces from the Brett Stevens types.
And you guys notice that when she was first kind of stuck at like 5%, there was all this talk about how, gosh darn that, Elizabeth Warren, she's got so many great plans. Why isn't she doing better? And now she's doing better. But then Bernie dropped all of the fire stuff. Like in a month, he's dropping revolutionary fucking concepts in labor and criminal justice reform, healthcare, housing. And all of a sudden, nobody cares about plans. Where'd the plans go? No, nobody. I don't hear anybody even talking about about Warren in terms of plans anymore. It's like that was there to like keep her viable, and now that she's got her own momentum, and that's no longer a thing you can criticize compared to Bernie.
No,
it's
I think that's still part of her appeal. That's still central to it, is the plans thing. I just had a stray thought. Are you on Twitter?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you go to the Twitter search? Okay, total stray thought. Total shot in the dark. Can you search? Maybe it's better on YouTube. Can
Elizabeth Warren and then the N-word.
Can you search Warren plans rap?
Oh God. Oh boy.
Maybe you should go on YouTube. Maybe you should go on
Fuck
YouTube.
you.
Maybe you should go on YouTube for this. Is there a rap?
Oh God.
No, I
Really?
I mean, maybe our
fucking God. Thank fucking God.
maybe I'm sure our eagle-eared listeners will turn something up, but like on first glance, I'm not seeing
there
anything.
you go. That's an indication that she's not the front runner and she hasn't made it yet. So I wouldn't be overly concerned about it.
I can't bring myself to post about any of this because it's the most insane shit I've ever seen. Like, does no one care that she pretended until she was 70 was like, yeah, I'm Cherokee.
I mean, do you care?
How can you? I mean,
do you care? I don't care.
I think it's funny. I think it shows. I think it's funny, and I think more. I don't care as in oh, she needs to fucking have dinner with WOC or something. I don't know. But I mean, does anyone care when they just talk about how racist Bernie is?
Yeah.
For literally just 3 years straight, and just until she was 65, and one of the Johns was like, beep boop, spit in my hand so I could determine your haplogroup. And she found out that she was less Native American than anyone. Does no one care that she just did this forever? That's hilarious. It makes you too insane. I am sympathetic to the people on my timeline who I mute a lot of the time, who are engaging in arguments with Warren surrogates. I mean, I'm sympathetic to it because I want to do it too. I want to yell at those people too, but it just drives me too insane. It just puts me in too bad of a mental space.
No, that's because there's no end game to it,
Yeah, no, there's zero.
And
zero.
there's no, you recognize
it
has no impact on reality whatsoever.
Yeah, all it does is make me me feel bad and hopeless. So I try not to engage with it. But it is if you do that all day, I fucking get it. Because just the only time I really engage with this is whenever we talk about it on the show. And that's when I'm like, she was a fucking Republican until she could get Medicare. Does no one give a shit? They don't give a shit. because they don't think anyone will check on it. And if you do bring it up, it'll be like, oh, so people can't grow? Like, fine. I think she has like, in my ideal world, my ideal compromise world where like Bernie is president, she has a bright future in the Senate, fucking regulating financial bodies.
Keep in mind, keep in mind that a substantial part of the Democratic coalition now is suburbanites who have left the Republican Party since the Bush administration.
Yeah, no, they got exactly what they fucking wanted with that.
So, if we're catering to upper class, white suburbanites who are essentially conservative in their outlook, if they are going to be the ones who determine the winner of the primaries, then Bernie Sanders can't possibly win.
I mean,
yeah.
Again, I don't think that's. You're right.
I'm saying
that's
if
true.
then,
yeah,
yes,
exactly.
yeah, but which dovetails with what Matt said.
Yeah, and like what I'm saying is like, it's like none of this is going to be a cakewalk. Like there's like you can take nothing for granted in that like the everything is stacked against Bernie Sanders other than the overwhelming popularity of his actual beliefs.
The other thing is like Felix, I've also been ignoring what people say online, but
you've all muted me as well.
Yeah, I've muted everyone. I log on and it's just promoted tweets and Donald Trump. That's the only stuff that I want to interact with anymore. And but what I've noticed, which I get through osmosis, the media coverage and the conversations about the primaries is everyone's sounding the alarm about Bernie Sanders right now. Out of the 8 last national polls conducted within the past 2 weeks, out of the last 8, Biden led all 8 of them. Warren led Bernie Sanders in 4 of those. Bernie Sanders led Elizabeth Warren in 4 of those. This race has been consistent. They've been in these positions for several months now. So I kind of think it needs to be another explanation for the Bernie panic narrative and the Warren ascendance narrative than that. The way I view it as, I think this serves a function to be the off-ramp for squishes, basically. For Bernie supporters who are not actually socialist or really even actually critical of capitalism, who are not really opposed to private profit.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's like there was this socialist movement after Bernie won because our choices were just this absolutely decrepit neoliberalism embodied by Hillary Clinton and Bernie. And a lot of people went with Bernie just because of how untenable the Clinton consensus was. But now that the choice doesn't exist anymore, now there's this perfect person who can embody the best of technocratic liberalism and identity politics, and also a challenge to the way things are done that does not fundamentally undermine a political and economic structure that they, at the end of the day, we're always down with. And that's why I'm saying that that if Bernie's going to win, it's not going to be because he's won over some chunk of the politically engaged American public or the political media, because they're just not. Their class interests will be hostile to him no matter what.
I mean, the way I feel about this is like I go back to like when we were talking about the Corbyn stuff in the UK. And again, like the just mind-numbing inanity and just unreality of the fact that like everyone has just agreed that like he's an anti-Semite. And like that's the thing you have to deal with. And what I said to our, British listeners and supporters is like, look, you can either support Corbyn and be called an anti-Semite and just like deal with that, forget about it, write it off, and keep going like you would otherwise. Or you can knuckle under it, but like either way, like just toughen up if you're in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
And what I'll say about with Sanders this time around is like you can be positive and only talk about the things you like about Sanders. You can engage critically with his political rivals or opponents or critics in the media. But guess what? Like you're going to be treated the same way. And guess what? If you're not a white guy, you're going to be and still support Sanders. You're going to be treated even worse. So it's like. You're just going to have to deal with it.
Well, I just find it very suspicious, the motivations of all of these people who will prevaricate in order to smear someone running to be the first Jewish president of the United States. I think that's a milestone that we should all hope for and we should all support.
There you go. But here's the other thing, though. And I guess, like, if you're looking to engage on this issue, like, I can't, like, if you supported Sanders in 2016 or consider yourself left of liberal and, like, or progressive or even just liberal in any way, how could you, in a very much still ongoing primary, possibly choose Warren over Sanders? Look, I've already made my peace to the prospect of, like, voting for her in the general, and that's something for everyone else, no matter who the candidate is going to have to, a decision that they have to come to on yourself based on your own moral calculus. But as long as Sanders is still in the race, why not go with the person who has unqualified support for Medicare for all, which you cannot say of Elizabeth Warren? And I'll even give credit to that Vox guy, Dylan Matthews, for being honest and just outright saying, I don't believe Warren supports Medicare for all, and that's good because it's like it won't happen. It's an unrealistic healthcare plan that we shouldn't expend political capital on.
It's because Warren decently aligns with their class interests, and for them, things like Medicare for all are about as meaningful as what the MAGA challenge rappers were talking about. Whatever, and I listened to the raps, and I'm trying to suss out, okay, this is a young person, what their exact affinity to Trump is. Like, what are they getting out of this? And it's nothing material whatsoever. It's nothing that they could ever possibly hope to explain. It's just a miasma of signifiers that they've adopted because the mass media environment has more or less driven them insane.
Lil Trump bitches love, journalists hate me, cause I'm building walls and call them ice, baby. 50 on my wrist, eating burgers daily. Bitches Lil Trump, call my dick climate change. Bitches Lil Trump, shoot you up and make a stain. Do it for the people. Fuck the fame, got my AR-15. You know I open carry, coming for my guns, something about Mary.
I think that goes for, the mirror image of that is on the Democratic side of everyone who logs on every day and is immersed in the news, which, as Felix points out correctly, is not healthy or useful. You can't do anything about the news. All it does is increase your anxiety because you're not moored to any greater movement or thing or community, anything greater than yourself and your personal consumer choices. So to them, supporting a presidential candidate is just another consumer choice, another signifier that will help them, piece together a personality and maybe some affinity with another supporter of that candidate.
And again, to just underscore what I said earlier, there is a way out of it. The way out of it is not to just stop consuming the news or even going on Twitter, but again, understanding that it's
you're not going to stop posting.
I mean,
so.
it's like a drug. It's like, manage your drug habits like we do everything else. But the point is is to take action and as part of a political group or an organization larger than yourself, joining the Sanders campaign, volunteering your time, even just sending money. Whatever, but just understand that you will be called, no matter, you're going to have to toughen up because no matter what, you're going to be called a racist, a misogynist. You're going to be slandered as everything that is vile about Donald Trump and the people who support him.
But, I don't worry about it that much because I'm sure you saw the video outside. I want to say this was New Hampshire. I don't know. It was some cattle call. It was either New Hampshire or Iowa recently. And when the candidates show up to these events, they bring their teams, all wearing the candidate's T-shirt,
right, yeah.
holding signs, and then they have a chant leader. It's like
it was in Iowa, by the way.
That was Iowa.
That was in Iowa.
Okay, yeah.
That was at the steak fry.
Yeah.
That was a steak fry. Yes. And it's they have like a cheerleader for the candidate, and they're all singing their version of the MAGA challenge, but for Pete Buttigieg. And I don't even know what they rhyme Buttigieg with, but
getting head.
Yeah. And of course, famously, Bernie does not do that. He has his volunteers go out and canvass that area instead of performing for the media. But anyway, I bring that up because I'm sure you saw the most recent video of that, right?
Oh, yeah.
I see, a person there who's probably working for the campaign, but might be a volunteer, might just be a supporter. And I think, okay, I'm not worried about what that individual believes. And I can't really devote any time to convincing that person of one thing or another, or even just bothering myself with trying to understand what's happening in their brain, because that's a waste of time.
I think, Matt, you had it exactly right. The clip that I'm thinking of with Klobuchar and her supporters, she was doing the David Byrne Life During Wartime and Stop Making Sense.
No, not that one. The one where he's the running one, where he's like on the incline.
Can we just hear a little clip of Life During Wartime? That'd be dope. That's a banger.
This ain't no party. This ain't no disco. This ain't no fooling around. You're in the blood club.
I just want to say, Amy Klobuchar, you could tell that her MyGuard genetics had interacted with Turkic conquerors, giving her a natural sense of rhythm. Let's go, baby.
Again, I would just underscore, it's not totally out of your hands. And again, don't allow yourself to be intimidated or be like, let someone convince you out of your own moral sense, because Bernie Sanders, both in 2016 and even more so now, represents about a once every 100-year opportunity that's not going to come around again. It's in your hands, like, to do as much as you possibly can.
And once again, it's 5 months out from the very first votes in the primaries. If you're looking for the exits, here it is. That's door number 2. You can pick it right now if you want, but that's your decision.
Well, we're talking about eternal recurrence. I had just one thought of the future eternal recurrence, linking together these two stories. And, to Virgil and Felix, your point about Elizabeth Warren's, a Native American kerfuffle. I've been seeing more and more people like bringing that back up, and also this Biden corruption thing. I can just see in a few months how people critiquing Biden for being intimately linked with this corruption scandal, or Elizabeth Warren having her bad hits from her past drug up, the absolutely foolish Native American thing. Or, I saw the other day an old story about how Elizabeth Warren profited off of flipping foreclosed homes during the scandal. I didn't look into that enough, or during the collapse. I don't know. I didn't look into that enough to see if it's real or not. But I can imagine the future past of how people bringing up these hits against them as things down the rhetorical line of, hey, wonder if we didn't nominated somebody who wasn't just surrounded by economic and political scandals, being used against Bernie supporters as being like, well, now you're just being Trump. Well, you're echoing all the same criticisms that the MAGA shitheads lob at these people, to the point of being like, well, yes, you're eventually going to have to run against Trump. These things will be brought up. They are legitimate weaknesses. And, the maintainers of these candidates, presence is saying like, yes, but to bring them up now in support of another candidate, in support of Bernie Sanders, is playing right into the hands of the conservative people who attack them later. And I don't know where to go with that other than to wonder what you guys think about that, and just note that will certainly.
Well, with the Biden thing, I've seen a number of people say, how dare you even suggest that there's anything to this Biden story? Nobody should be looking into any of this. Instead, we should be focused on Trump and his impeachable offense. And certainly, a sitting president using the powers of that office in order to materially benefit his re-election prospects in a quid pro quo, like, yes, that is impeachable. That's something you should remove him from office. Go ahead, add it to the list. It's number 4071. But the second part of that okay, well, because Trump did this thing and said this thing, then we can't talk about Hunter Biden. We can't talk about the endemic corruption at the highest levels, that the children of the wealthy and well-connected, no matter what party they're a member of, they always get paid off in some fashion. To say that you can't investigate that's now, we cleared that, it's fine just because you said it, that's obviously not that's not a winning strategy. And we lived through this once before, when the media refused to look into things like the Clinton Foundation, be critical of the practices of the investigate the donors of the Clintons in the 2016 election when because that plays into Trump's hands and Trump is he is a unique threat to democracy. That didn't kill the story, and that just pushed the story to right-wing media, which obviously has fewer scruples and less competence, and means that the story will mutate and be manifested as mixtures of things that are true or not true, but are nevertheless lurid and convincing to your average person. That happened before, and people are demanding now that it happens again because they think that's smart and that's good strategy. And just having recent history as your guide shows that, no, that is a very, very bad idea to let Biden off the hook just because the president, should be impeached, should be behind bars.
Like, all this shit is going to come up as soon as it's a general
And it
election.
also becomes central to Donald Trump's relativistic argument, his pointing fingers at the opposition, saying, "Oh well, the Democrats accuse me of being corrupt, but what about Joe's son hanging out in Ukraine?" It's and that creates enough ambiguity to the average person where they're like, "Oh well, I guess they're both crooks, huh?"
And what's so good about that, and you're 100% right, that like the overwhelming consensus seems to be that it's gauche or bad form to talk about any of these things, or that like basically everyone needs to like with a wink and a nod just kind of get on board. And not. And
I'm not saying I understand it, but people are explicitly saying, "Oh, and by the way, there's absolutely nothing to the Joe Biden story." And it's like, how do you know?
Well, it's what all those people say about Sanders and why they're terrified that if he gets the nomination, it will be a disaster in the general. Because they're like, "Oh, could you imagine Donald Trump telling everyone that he's a socialist who wants everyone to have free health care?" Yeah. It's like I'd rather have, if I'm just even a partisan Democrat, I'd rather have that fucking debate in the general than Elizabeth Warren having to try to explain again why she said she was a Cherokee.
Oh, absolutely. It would be a redux of the Republican messaging against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, which just makes her more popular and shows her positions to be sensible. And as well, would enable us to have a general election that is about a substantive point, which is whether neoliberalism is working or whether we need to drastically change course, drastically realign our economy.
Like I said, this is a once in 100-year opportunity, and it's not coming around again anytime soon. So keep that in mind.
It'll probably come around in a few more cycles, but things are just going to be worse by then. So
who knows? Anyway, that's some vegetables. Let's have some fun, guys. Let's have some damn fun. Switch it up now. I have been waiting for this story to drop for probably a year now.
We all have,
and it's finally here. And boy, oh boy, does it deliver.
An eagle-eyed listener sent us this right hot off the presses.
I usually pay pretty close attention to him, but I'm glad someone scoped this out. I'm talking, of course, about Rod Dreher. We're back to one of our absolute reading series favorites, and Rod does not disappoint.
I almost feel like, we've done it so many times, but I feel like there should be a special sting for Rod Dreher's. Like, oh my God, is that Rod Dreher's music I hear?
Oh, yeah.
All right, yeah, it should be like rap air horn and then like reggaeton air horn and then like Gregorian chants.
I was thinking Gregorian chants is good. The dramatic squirrel music also could be good because he is a very dramatic squirrel.
I'm thinking like the organ music from Dracula, like like
that's good.
Yeah,
well, I think that's Kevin Williams.
Okay, yeah, okay,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
We'll play around with it. But yeah, like drop that Rod Dreher beat. Okay.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
All right. Listeners of the show remember, it was back in our Pittsburgh live show. We did what I would consider actually, I think maybe my favorite reading series we've ever done on the show.
Yeah, same for sure.
I mean, this one had everything, and it took up pretty much the entire second half of our live show in Pittsburgh. You can go back and listen to that now, which would help you to give you some background for this story. But you might remember that in that episode, Rod Dreher wrote a lengthy article about a young couple from New York City that he is close friends with, who is dealing with a problem that many marriages face. Infidelity? No. demonic possession. He had a long...
I mean, who hasn't? R/relationship advice. My wife has Pazuzu with it.
And this was all about how a young wife had become possessed by like probably 8 different demons that would manifest, in very, she would make strange sounds at night that sounded like buzzing coming from the bathroom.
DTMFA.
And forever, I just kept saying, Rod, when are we going to get the follow-up? Let us know how the exorcism went. Just, I need to know more about the Exorcist couple. Folks, he done it. In the pages of the American Conservative, I bring you Rod Dreher's Devils of Manhattan. I guess he's like a Ken Russell fan or something. But this is the follow-up to the I think the most legendary reading series of all time, Rod Dreher's The Exorcist.
Fire. Devils of
Absolute
Manhattan.
fucking
Okay.
flames.
So he begins, you might remember this post of mine from about a year ago. Pause. Go back. Listen to the second half of our Pittsburgh live show. I guess just like, I'll give you a few quick hits just to remind you of what that was like. Nathan told me the story of how things came to this point. I won't give you too many details out of an abundance of caution. It turns out that his wife had an eating disorder as a teenager and tried to kill herself twice back then. Now, in the middle of her life, depression returned, but with certain strange characteristics that seemed off. She began to despise religious things in an inexplicable way. She began to hate. Yeah, she began to hate the strictures of her, awful tradcath life.
She started
in a totally inexplicable way.
She started listening to Anti-Flag.
When she went to a healing mass, there was a manifestation that indicated that something dark and alien was at work with her.
Oh, those classic manifestations. That thing we all know.
He told me that 8 different spirits manifested themselves through his wife. 8 different Pilates teachers had manifested themselves in his wife. Going on, he told me other detailed stories, including accounts of bizarre poltergeisty things happening in their apartment, and his wife being unable to stand the presence of blessed objects. Again, readers, if you knew these people, Nathan and his wife, you would be even more shocked by all of this than you know. Okay, again, we did that story, and I was just like, I need to know more about Nathan and Elizabeth.
It was honestly fucked up. He left us hanging hard.
Okay.
Because wasn't that last year?
It was last year, but
come on, man.
Again, spoiler alert, would it surprise you to know that there's absolutely no resolution to this follow-up whatsoever?
Fucking Dreher.
But he does give you an update on it, which is
good.
worth its weight in gold. So here we go. The Devils of Manhattan. Nathan and his wife, I'll call her Emma, live in New York City. When I was in the city this week, I went to see them. I write what follows with Nathan's permission. Emma has completed the formal Catholic process to have a ritual exorcism. This, as distinct from the deliverance prayers that the exorcist had been saying over her to limited effect. That didn't work, so it's time to get a bit more deliberate. Part of that process was a psychiatric evaluation by a psychiatrist to rule out mental illness or any other natural cause for this behavior.
Hi, everybody.
She's suffering from bonus interruption.
Mr. Dreher, it appears that your wife's friend is suffering from several types of demons.
She passed that. I want to emphasize, and this is Rod's boldface here, she has been formally examined by a psychiatrist.
Okay, then never mind.
Let's go, baby.
Who has certified that there is no known medical or natural cause for the things that she is suffering and that manifest themselves through her. They are still waiting on the cardinal's approval.
This is the worst psychiatrist because it never diagnoses anyone, just writes, boy, that's weird.
Fuck vibes.
But she goes, okay, so the psychiatrist has ruled out any other explanation for why this woman is demonically unhappy in this awful marriage. He goes, they are still waiting on the cardinal's approval. In the Catholic Church, no formal ritual exorcism can happen without express permission of the local bishop.
God damn.
Which in this case is the cardinal. New York City Catholic Church, can you maybe put a move on this shit? This woman is being haunted by 8 different fucking demons.
You know what? This kind of red tape and bureaucracy, this is what Bernie Sanders wants to bring to the healthcare system.
Jesus, I tried to sign up for a fucking exorcism and the website's down.
Again, This was a year ago that we read this. So presumably this guy has been living in an apartment with a
demonically
woman who is
possessed
possessed by a demon.
8 demons.
And 8 different demons. They're like, shit is moving in their living room without anyone touching it. I don't know. I think like I would not.
Sir, I am on my lunch break.
Like go to a country or a place where like there's Catholics and maybe less rigorous like overseas approval from the sea, maybe.
Okay.
The Catholic Diocese of the Cayman Islands.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. I paid a call on Nathan and Emma at their apartment. Emma was even more beautiful than I remembered her in person, but she looked pale and tired.
Well, we know Rob's type, then.
We sat and began to talk. Nathan began our talk with a prayer. Her face betrayed signs of an internal struggle. Yeah, I fucking bet it did. Having hit you over for fucking dinner, dude. Suddenly, okay, sorry, I got. Nathan began our talk with a prayer. Her face betrayed signs of an internal struggle. Suddenly, her head swung back and to the left. Her face creased, and a deep voice said through her, "Fucking bitch." She was instantly back to herself and said weakly, "That's not me." Dude, okay, first of all, we established this in the Pittsburgh reading series. Go back and listen to that. This wife is 100% having it on, and this is like her only source of joy and entertainment is winding up her awful Cradcath husband and his idiot friends by just like, honey, we're having Rod over for dinner. Rod sits down, he's like, fuck you, motherfucking bitch. I'm so sorry. I don't know where that came from. Rod sucks cocks in hell. Oh, I'm sorry. That wasn't me. It was Pazuzu. Yeah. It's okay, honey. It's okay.
Rod's a remedial writer who benefits from the conservative welfare circuit. Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. It's the demon again.
Rod's next sentence. She didn't really have to say that. It so clearly wasn't her.
Sure.
Again, all of this demon shit, all of her strange behavior, 100% cover for her various affairs and, just any means of escape from this boring drudgery of being married to this absolute boring prick and having to go to mass like every fucking day. So it goes, it so clearly wasn't her. If you didn't know her, you would think that she was suffering from Tourette's. But again, she has been examined in detail by a psychiatrist. Do psychiatrists make those kinds of diagnoses?
Yeah, maybe of all the thousands of possible mental disorders, you have none of them. Checked all the boxes.
But again, she
100% sane.
She doesn't have Tourette's. Later, when Nathan brought out a relic that someone had given them.
Why you just got relics?
Hold on. What? What's the relic?
Later, when he doesn't even explain.
Yeah,
he
I
just
need to know what we're talking about.
Yeah,
you can't bring out some dead motherfucker's like finger bone. I need to know.
Later, when Nathan brought out a relic that someone had given them, she reacted instantly, like a normal person would if someone had presented a poisonous viper.
Why do you have the severed dick of Saint Jerome? That's a normal reaction.
She did not, in fact, react how a normal person would when they're presented with a relic.
The relic that they just got through friends.
Yeah. You gotta go on eBay.
Hey, man, I love you so much. Here's Christ's foreskin. This is the real one.
The deep voice demanded that Nathan get that thing away from it. Fuck you and your bitch-ass relic!
That relic's fucking trash.
I don't own any relics. Is that normal?
Relic, doesn't that usually mean like a part of the physical body of a saint,
part
right?
of the saint, yeah.
So he's talking about like a human
or a personal
bone.
effect.
I guess maybe like
a piece of the true cross.
Yeah.
A nail from the cross, something like that.
He's got one of those. He's got
shrouded Turin.
God, I went to K Jewelers and I got my wife a piece of the Spear of Destiny and she fucking flipped out and assumed I was cheating. Thoughts?
There was more. I have never seen anything like this in person. The sense of malice and destruction was intense. They intend to destroy Emma and to take down as many people as they can. She told me that these evil spirits are constantly telling her to kill herself. Nathan told me later that one of the demons that uses that particular language when Emma is about to share practical wisdom that she has gained from this awful experience Indeed, that's what Emma subsequently did. Despite all the scary stuff, I came away from this meeting profoundly inspired and more inspired than unsettled. Let me emphasize. Okay, again, Rod believes all of this, like literally. How could you experience something like that and walk away and be like, actually, it left me inspired?
Yeah, the
I'm actually
Catholic Church.
I'm quite hopeful about this woman who 8 demons are shredding apart on a daily basis.
Well, the Holy Mother Church is like, well, we got a few more forms you got to fill out.
Yeah. So he goes, let me emphasize. Why? Because I don't know that I have ever seen such strong faith. Both Nathan and Emma are so thoroughly committed to Jesus Christ. They know how this evil came into their lives. It started with Emma's...
It was off of toilets.
It started with Emma's grandfather, who was a high-level Freemason, and passed through the family line. Yes. Emma's grandfather was a Freemason, which is why she's being riven by demonic forces now.
What?
This is normal. This is good.
You know how many
He's inspired
Freemasons
by
there
this shit.
are, right? Does this also include the Shriners?
Do you know how many demons there are?
Does this also include the Shriners? Like, if your grandpa was driving around in a little car with the fez, does that mean you have at least one demon inside of you driving a tiny little car around in your head?
You're like, Grandpa, like, make the car's horn honk. A much too vulgar display of power. Okay, so he goes, when Nathan and Emma were at Emma's father's deathbed last year and called a priest in to do the last rites, the voices began coming out of him and the growls and the same curses. He probably just was pissed off that like his granddaughter's asshole husband was getting some weirdo priest in there to put, a pinky bone on his forehead as he was trying to like get the DMT hit and then just exit. So he goes here, what their grandfather brought onto their family has been handed down through 2 generations and destroyed the family in a number of ways. Nathan and Emma know that she will be liberated eventually. This is their conviction, but that for some mysterious reason, God is allowing her to suffer a while longer.
That wacky prank.
Here are the lessons for me and for you readers, and I've gotten Nathan's permission to post. So I'm just going to briefly go run. There's a lot going here. I'm just going to briefly hit these important lessons about demonic possession. Number 1, we are all engaged in spiritual warfare. It's not just a metaphor. It's happening all around us. Okay, number 2, one of the basic markers of it is unforgiveness. Emma said that's how these entities take root in a person's soul. Unforgiveness of her just awful marriage and terrible husband and his idiot friends who slowly driving her to, madness and desperation.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to keep watching that movie. It's Eastwood's best.
3,
Demons got nothing to do with it.
3, there is no substitute for prayers. These entities absolutely hate it.
I mean, not that bad. They've had a priest praying over her ass for a year.
She's
and they're
still
just
possessed.
chilling.
She's still possessed.
So it's clearly not that big a deal to them.
Number 4, embrace total humility. Be willing to suffer anything for the sake of Christ. I would say Nathan should embrace that instinct and just suffer in the terms of letting his wife leave this marriage and family. That would be a humble thing for him to do, not continuing this idiotic charade. And finally, 5, along those lines, Emma said, keep your eyes locked on the cross. She explained that these demons will do their best to play on your weaknesses. They will tempt you to self-pity, or failing that, they will exploit your own weaknesses, sending thoughts of depression, anxiety, rage, self-hatred, and anger towards your husband's friends. No, that's editorializing at the end. Okay, finally, goes on here. As I was leaving their place, I thought about the profound truth of that cliche, be kind, for everyone you know is fighting a great battle. If you saw this couple walking down the street, you would barely notice them, except to say maybe, what a nice-looking pair. Yet, there's a war for her soul going on inside Emma, and Nathan is fighting this battle too, in their home and in their marriage. As I told you, it was incredibly impressive to see the faith present in this suffering couple. Emma told me, believe me when I say that this is a blessing for us all, for this to come out. For so many years I've been fighting depression, and I thought that's all it was. When these things, the demons she means, came to the surface, it had been a horrible thing to deal with, but at least finally I could know what I was up against and get help. The overwhelming impression I had was not one of fright, but of hope, of hard-won hope. I came away both extremely sobered about the times and the nature of life, but also inspired to get my own spiritual life in order, following their advice. It is not possible to stand on the sidelines from a position of neutrality, they say. We are all in this fight, whether we know it or not. It is better to know it. When this ordeal is finally over, God, what, another 10 years from now of this shit? I believe Nathan and Emma are going to write a book about it. Oh my God. I need it. I need it now.
There's nothing that really helps your credibility like writing a book about your supernatural encounter. Let's talk to the Warrens.
If she had, if this woman had any credibility at all, they would have called into Art Bell when he was still alive. That is the only credible thing you do if you have a supernatural encounter is Coast to Coast AM. When I wrote to Nathan to share this part of the post and asked permission to publish it, he responded in part. I would also add that God has supplied all the graces needed. If you had told me 2 years ago that I would have been in this current situation, I would have run in the other direction. I have Dear Catholic Church Forum, I never thought it would happen to me, but my wife has a demon, several of them actually. So he goes, I have complete confidence that as long as I remain close to the sacraments and free of mortal sin, God will supply all of the grace and assistance needed. I just thought it was like a locker room conversation for your wife's demonic possession. It's like
Folks,
we know what we came here to do. We got to go out there,
We're going to give it
play hard.
110%.
Now, reader, believe this or not, it doesn't hurt my feelings if you don't believe it. I'm telling you, though, if you had sat there with me and saw and heard the things I saw and heard, you would find it hard to see the world in the same way. There are some of you who need to read this and who need the hope in Nathan and Emma's story. Rod, if you would like to convince people of the necessity of this kind of spiritual warfare, or that, like, you know, maybe anyone who's skeptical about this, you do realize that basically everyone has a video camera in their pocket now, and that, like, anytime you could visit Nathan or Emma and just maybe, like, interview Emma and see if you can get a little dirty language out of her, a little dirty talk.
Yeah, a little spark.
And then I think I would like to judge for myself how authentic these demonic encounters are.
I mean, it's the watchword of all paranormal skeptics: pics or it did not happen.
So there you go. And what I love about this story is I've been dying for a follow-up because I need to know how shit worked out with this exorcism.
They haven't even had
There
it.
hasn't even been a
That's
fucking exorcism.
insane. What the fuck is going on?
What does it tell you about how seriously the Catholic Church, which you supposedly have placed all your faith and belief in, they don't even take this shit seriously. If they did, they would have been sorted this shit out.
There's 8 demons in a house on the Upper West Side. We're just going to let them hang around for a year.
Well, you expect them to just rubber stamp every exorcism?
I mean, yes, I
See,
understand.
they've gone through every other, they've jumped through every
She's
hurdle.
gone through the process. It should have been approved by now.
There's procedures.
I got to say, this is a strong argument for Protestantism because if you feel like you're possessed there, you just go to like an abandoned Foot Locker and like a guy in track pants hits you in the head with a Bible until you're cured. You don't have to wait around and fill out a bunch of forms.
No, people, you can have relatives just lay hands on you, and sock and tongues and shit.
My favorite part of that article is you go into the comment section and there's a lot of people arguing about the nature of demons. And some people say, like, no. You know, it's very rare that demons possess people. Instead, their whole MO is coming to Earth and tempting you to sin. Maybe sometimes they want to come here just to hang out in the here and now, but otherwise, you know, they're just all about tempting you. And I'm just reading that and I'm thinking, a bunch of assholes. Is that all you do? Like, why?
I mean, they're demons.
There's other things you could do.
They're pricks.
You could do other things.
I mean, if you lived in a hell, I mean, presumably it sucks. By definition, it's hell. It's not great for anybody, even if you're a demon. And like hanging out
but
in a
there's
nice
cool
apartment.
neighborhoods everywhere.
Like hanging out in a nice apartment in the upper West Side, like trolling some dipshit tradcath all day.
So they do have
That sounds fun.
So they do have. So going to hell's not so bad because you could go troll this lady.
Well, no, that's the demons. You got to be a demon to do
someone
that.
says,
Humans don't get to be demons.
Yeah, you don't have that power.
Those are fallen angels.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get that straight.
I'm just looking at one of the comments here. Maybe the demons are real, but lying. I don't rule out generational phenomenon in or out, nor do I rule out real possession where the demons give a mixture of true and false information. I mean, anyone who's seen The Exorcist knows that the demon is a liar.
What do the demons get out of doing this?
Just
A
entertainment.
soul. They got a soul on.
They're
it.
horny.
Okay, what do they do with the soul?
Put it in hell. Rack it up.
And then what?
There's
It's
a
like
quota.
no, it's like Virgil. It's like
There's a
entertainment.
quota
What is it?
system.
No, it's a quota. This is
Yes, they need
this
to
is
get
Glengarry Glen Ross.
Yes. These are the Glengarry leads. You got to go and get this many souls by the end of the month, or you're fired.
If you're
I know
demon, you've got a job. Well, that just
No,
sucks.
it's like entertainment for them to like, if you've seen The Exorcist, it's like to corrupt something as pure as a teenage girl or a bored housewife on the Upper West Side. Like that's fun to them. They all want to get down on it. But I like that the mixture of true and false information. The true information here is that Rod is a bitch ass motherfucker. That's 100% true.
Yeah, no lie detected on that demon truth bomb.
Rod Dreher, oh my God, Rod in the comments says, my father and grandfather were Masons, as were many of the Protestant white men in my hometown. There was a Black Lodge too. Interesting. None of them should have been part of that organization, in my view. I think it is spiritually dangerous. But two things. European Freemasonry and American Freemasonry are rather different.
USA.
Two,
USA.
Nathan and Emma do not claim that every person who enters Freemasonry will therefore become demon-possessed. Would you say that because not everyone who smokes crack becomes a crack addict proves that the story that you've been told about a crack addict whose addiction destroyed his family is untrue and crack is therefore harmless?
yeah, it's harmless.
I mean, you do crack once in a while, you're fine.
Yeah, don't do it every day.
Yeah, don't do
screw
Freemasonry
you
every
up.
day, and then you won't pass on a generational demonic possession
Well,
to your
see,
family.
that's why you need ritual, because otherwise you would just smoke crack every day. You have to limit that to a certain period, once a fortnight or something, and that's something you look forward to, kind of like a festival, a Saint's Day.
Saint Free Red Cross.
I know we have our laughs at Rod and his friend's predicament, but I got to say I admire them because they are living a fun.
Oh God, can
life.
you imagine?
Like the contrast is between them and say the people who worship the news
Yeah.
and are really obsessed with the whole Ukraine thing and about impeaching Trump, and they're just making themselves anxious and lunatics, thinking that, oh, okay, well, you're right, Senator Schatz, we got to do something about it. I'm going to at Katie Tur and demand she get the truth. And I mean, that is exactly as apotropaic as whatever the fuck Rod and his
No, it's
male
way
friend is
lamer.
doing.
Yeah,
It's worse.
you can your life a movie, but you have to choose whether that movie is The Post or
The
The
Exorcist.
Exorcist.
Yeah,
The Devil May
exactly.
Cry.
The
They're having-
Exorcist is a way better movie. I mean, just think about that. You're watching TV all day.
William
You're watching
Friedkin.
You're watching MTV or you're watching MSNBC. You're tweeting. Just absolutely sterile, meaningless spectacle. If you thought there was a demon in your house and every day was a war with the demons so that it didn't kill you or your family members, that is a level of drama and just excitement. And you genuinely believe that there's an etheric plane that you're going to be rewarded for this battle.
And
in
you
the next
also,
life.
and they have cooler relics.
Yeah.
They have a fucking nail from the true cross
Yeah.
that they're using to ward off the demon. And if you're a lib, you have a fucking $200 Pod Save America sweatshirt, one of the Johns jizzed on.
You got one of those fucking safety pins from the safety pin box.
boring.
Not as good.
No, you're exactly right. Do you want to make yourself insane with fright from things you see on MSNBC? Or do you want to watch like a dinner plate push itself off the table on its own
Yeah.
in a totally empty room?
Yeah.
That is fucking cool.
I would love there to be a demon in my life.
So they live in.
I'm inviting a demon into my life right now. I'm saying it.
I've tried. I take astrology seriously. I mean, I tried to open that door as wide as it would fucking go, but I got nothing.
I
got
don't know.
focus.
Should we like get a Ouija board or something? Because I would love to have a demon involved.
All right.
there are demons.
If you guys really want, my mom knows Mammon, so we can contact him. But I don't like calling in family favors like that. It's kind of gross.
Honestly, I think there are demons here.
In this apartment right now?
Yeah. I think it's us.
It's you. I mean, it's you. You are
I
a
think it's
demon.
us. We're the demons.
You're a literal
That's
demon.
why you failed at inviting
All
them.
right, okay. Are you demon or are you baby? It can't be both.
Baby. He's a demon baby. Real
Okay.
thing.
All right. This is like when you're like in like third grade and you're like, I'm Dark Vader and also Superman. No, you have to be one.
No, he's a demon baby. It's a real thing, and he is
I'm
one.
Azazel. I call Azazel.
Okay, you Ms. Basil.
Miss Basil.
The marvelous Miss Mason over here. I'm gonna go ultra pretentious and old school. Mephistopheles.
Oh,
Wisdom.
come on.
Tempting
Oh, the
guys
cat
with
demon. Very
wisdom.
cool.
No, not from Cats. The guy who tempted Faust. That guy's cool.
I will be Lestat.
He's not a
He's a
demon. He's a
vampire.
vampire.
No, both same.
Oh God.
All right, I'm gonna be the most classic demon character ever. Dante from Devil May Cry.
Chris, do you have a demon that you want to be?
I'll go with Gremory.
Oh, you should be Dante from Clerks.
Gramsci? Can we stop talking about these fucking theorists for one day?
There you go. Sort of similar to the actual sequel to The Exorcist, kind of shit. But I'm hoping.
Yeah, pretty dog shit.
I'm hoping for Nate and Emma Part 3, Legion, which is one of the best horror sequels
Yes!
of all fucking
Yes!
time. Directed
Yes!
by William Peter Blatty. Exorcist 3, Legion.
Fantastic.
Incredible movie. Following on Exorcist 2,
Dog
one
shit.
of the shittiest films ever made.
Yes. No, if the pattern holds, the next update, we might not get it for a year. It's going to be amazing.
You know what? You know what would be kind of sick? What are the guys in fucking Hellraiser called?
Cenobites.
Yeah, if Rod becomes one of the only humans to defeat a Cenobite. He
The
could.
Cenobites are not demons. They are beyond good and evil. They are simply in a realm of pleasure and experience.
Nah,
where
that's
pain
only in
and
the first
pleasure
film.
becomes,
In the sequels, they become
Leviathan.
more and more associated with the traditional Christian hell.
If you're out there, if you're a listener in New York City and you happen to know this couple,
Yes.
Please get in touch with us with any information. But don't interfere with what's happening.
No, of
please,
course.
because
Then you're putting your soul at hazard.
Should we just become paranormal investigators?
That
in New
would
York
rule.
City?
Let's do it.
I think we'd be good at it.
Who are you gonna call?
Yeah, the Chapo Busters.
Ghost
Where's
Chapo.
There's got to be a haunted thing in Brooklyn, right? Let's go.
Oh, there's a lot of haunted
let's
things.
go. Let's go
Brooklyn.
find one. Let's go find out.
Oh, is it gonna be a haunted latte machine? Oh, is it gonna be a ghost is in a fucking selfie stick? Is it you're gonna go to Starbucks and they're listening to fucking Ghost Justin Bieber? Give me a coffee flavored coffee.
Anyway, if you've had any demonic experiences, I'd like to hear about them.
Yeah, hit us up because I'm
Yeah.
sick of living in this horrible material hell. I'd like to imagine that there's a transcendent realm somewhere.
Also, if you have a line on a real relic, I think that would be a valuable investment.
Yeah, we will
for us.
buy a.
Oh,
we will
wow,
buy a
yeah.
relic. That's
The
a
Chapo
that's
relic
a, that's
would
a
be amazing.
business expense.
Yes, if we could get like the crown of thorns or like a plank from the Ark.
Just a thorn.
Yeah, anything. Just like
you got the Spear of Longinus?
yeah, the spirit launch. There's something to put before us and destroy our enemies with. Would be really appreciate.
If you have an ancient immortal relic like the lunch ticket that Saul Alinsky lied about,
If you had the shoe that fell off of Hillary Clinton's foot on September 11th, 2016, we would carry it on a stick in front of our army.
All right, Hellboys and girls, that does it for this week. We'll see you again soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.